Hi, welcome back to Morsels of Excellence. I am Reverend Nora Faust with the Penn Central Conference, and I'm excited that you are joining me for this installment on our vlog this year, Morsels of Excellence, as we take a journey looking at different marks of a healthy church. We have looked at several so far this year, and today we're going to focus on building transformational leadership skills among the existing leaders in your congregation, as well as the future leaders in your setting. How exactly is it that leadership or consistory goes about strategically creating the future of God's church? This might include things like training new leaders. In one church I worked with in the past, every single member of consistory had a shadow from the church that was following them in their last year of service in that role so that another was being trained. How is your congregation intentional about this? Or regular review of your constitution and bylaws. It is amazing to me the number of churches who during this pandemic realized that their bylaws might not have been looked at since the 60s or 70s when they were initially put together. The church has certainly grown and changed and become something very different than it was then. How do our governance documents need to change as well? There are ways in which your leadership might be creating this future of God's church in looking at the mission and vision of your church. What are the real goals of the congregation that you have gathered together for worship on a Sunday morning? What are the measurable objectives that you lay out for your congregation as the leaders in that setting each year? And how do you evaluate that with regularity? How do you look at building maintenance or programs of the church that might need to change or end? One of the sometimes boring but very necessary tasks of leadership in the church is performing some administrative duties. Now, these have to be done, and they really have to be done faithfully. This might include boring paperwork like creating position descriptions for every volunteer position, as well as every paid staff member, including the pastor. This is everybody from the church sexton to the nursery keepers, to Sunday school teachers, to faith formation leaders in adult classes. Everybody, the leader of your women's sewing guild. There should be a position description for this role. There also needs to be regular review of compensation packages for paid employees. How is that just? How are those completed? Setting the church budget is also an administrative task that needs regular attention, right? It must be questioned as well. Why are we spending these dollars on this line? Does that accomplish the mission that we have laid out for the future of God's church? It's also important for each person as a leader in the church to continue their growth, as well as the growth and education of future leaders in the church. This past year has surely shown us an opportunity to grow and learn, especially in the technology field, but also in creative ways of stewardship, creative ways of doing outreach in the community, of being God's hands and feet, of showing God's love in our corners, as well as the whole of the world. Does congregational leadership look for ways to understand the needs of the immediate community around your church? Or does it look for ways to grow the congregation spiritually, not numerically or financially? Does your church have a commitment to lifelong biblical learning and theological reflection among adults for all generations, children, adults, seniors, including special training for leaders as necessary and needed? A final aspect of leadership skills that I would be remiss not to mention is denominational engagement. It's a synod year in the United Church of Christ, and local leaders have an opportunity to engage the wider church discussion as never before, particularly through joining the wider church in worship, in workshops. There's also opportunity at the local church to check out the resolutions and engage the conversation with the wider church. Because this year, Synod is online. The whole thing is online for everyone to join in. There are unique opportunities, and I encourage you to check out generalsynod.org for ways that you and your church can join us. Morsels of Excellence this year has looked at membership, at spiritual practices, sacred stories, and leadership. We will carry on our examination of these marks of a healthy local church next month. Come back to the PCC YouTube channel and to continue these conversations in your local settings, around tables, and on Zooms. Be blessed, friends. We'll see you next time.